It's just before midnight in the city of Peru, Indiana. Local attorney Jim Grund has been working late at home. He's sound asleep when an intruder shoots him in the face, killing him. Later, police discover the gun had been stolen from Jim's son. But it's Jim Grund's wife, Susan, who is convicted of murder. Did she do it? She told police she wasn't even there. But what does she say now, after 18 years in prison? I want Susan Grund to answer some tough questions about her past. Will she expose a miscarriage of justice? Or did the jury get it right? I'm Candace DeLong. As an FBI agent, I worked on the front line for the world's most powerful law enforcement agency. I went undercover, I trailed terrorists, and I interviewed notorious killers. It's my job to understand the people who others cannot comprehend. Susan Grund was the person who found her husband's dead body. When police arrived, she pointed to a ransacked closet and proposed a theory. Jim had been shot after surprising a burglar in the house.
This is one of Peru's finest neighborhoods. Large pieces of land and prominent families here. This is not the kind of neighborhood where you'd expect to find a murder.
I've been to many crime scenes. You can always tell when something's not right. If it was a burglary, why was nothing taken? If Jim disturbed someone, why was he shot lying on the couch? A chain of evidence eventually leads investigators to Jim's wife. In March 1994, Susan Grund was found guilty of first-degree murder. The sentence? 60 years. Now, she lives here, Rockville Correctional Facility, Indiana. For me, this is going to be a fascinating interview. If Susan really is guilty, why would she agree to talk to me? Does she believe she can outsmart anyone who questions her case? Or will her answers ring true? Once we get talking, I'm sure I'll soon get a sense of how honest Susan is really being with me. You went from the society pages of Peru, Indiana, to prison lockdown. What would you like people to know about you?
I live with the title of the Black Widow. So I think when fallacy weaves into our life, that they forget that there is a woman behind the story, that everyone is not guilty just because the picture is painted that way.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What kind of dreams did you have as a little girl? I mean, no little girl dreams of spending most of her life in a prison. What were your dreams like?
I think I just wanted a family, have my own children, have my own life, and be happy.
At 17, Susan married for the first time. By 24, she'd been married 3 times, had a son, and was pregnant again. She was a poor girl from the wrong side of the tracks. Then she met a man from the swanky side of town, Jim Grund. Big name.
Yes.
Well-established family. He's an attorney. He'd been a prosecutor, correct?
Yes, he was.
Yeah. You're pregnant. You have a little boy. What do you think was going on? Why do you think he married you?
Perhaps when you take in a bird who has a broken wing and you nurse it back to health, even though when the bird is well and it can fly away, you've fallen in love with the bird because it sings so pretty. For whatever reason, you keep the bird.
Mm-hmm. You were Jim's
And then
bird.
perhaps that's what Jim did.
Okay. Now that's a sign of narcissism. For Susan, being worshipped by men is all important. Her new husband, Jim, did that for a while. But he wasn't the only man in the house. There was also Jim's teenage son, David. When David was 16 and you married his father, what was it like for David?
The typical teenager things. Breaking curfew, running around, getting drunk, just the typical things that teenagers do. And there was a lot of harshness between David and his father.
When did things start to go wrong?
Well, when David decided to take his father's place, I don't know how else to say. I guess when I stopped ceasing to be the bridge trying to gap the two of them, or bridge the gap, I don't even want to call it an affair. It wasn't really an affair.
Are you talking about an intimate relationship
Yes.
with your stepson?
Yes.
Okay, who was how old at the time that started?
Gosh, I would have to stop and think. He was in college, so he's 19, 20 years old.
At age 27, Susan Grund is queen of the social scene in Peru, Indiana. Her husband, Jim, is a high-profile attorney. They live in a beautiful home. But Susan claims she also has a lover, Jim's son, David. And so you end up at home alone with your college-age stepson,
Yes.
the son of your husband, in bed.
Yes.
When it was over, do you recall what you thought or felt?
Shame.
And how did David say how he felt?
He said, my father's wife in my father's house.
Meaning?
I suppose that that's the man he hates, and he did what the worst thing he could do to the man.
Am I to interpret your saying that as he said it like a conquest?
Yes,
And you felt shame?
absolutely.
Then why did it happen again?
Because I was afraid he would tell.
How long did this intimate relationship go on?
Maybe 2 years,
2 years.
but not frequent. You would think not like every weekend or anything like that.
It's an astounding claim, one that David Grund has always denied. For Susan, it's also the starting point for another quite incredible story. Did you admit to Jim that before he died that you had been seeing David?
Yes.
How did he take it?
He told me that he would handle it and we were to never speak of it again.
His exact words.
His exact words.
Did he seem upset?
No.
Anger, tears. I mean, that's probably one of the worst things a married person could hear, is that their spouse is having an intimate relationship that's gone on for 2 years with their child.
Absolutely.
And you're saying Jim just said, we'll never speak of this again? That strike you as odd?
Yeah. Very definite. No. Didn't want to know anything. No, didn't want to know any details. Didn't want promise extracted that it would never happen. Nothing. He said he would handle it, and we were never to speak on it again.
I find it very hard to believe that a man like Jim Grund would ignore such devastating news. The real story here is Susan's narcissism, which is a serious personality disorder. She believes she is irresistible to men. that her stepson finds her so attractive, he would kill his own father just to be with her. In my experience, stories like that only happen in Hollywood, not Peru, Indiana. The prosecutors at Susan Grund's murder trial made their case clear. Her marriage to Jim Grund was in trouble. The couple had been fighting and were seeing a counselor. Jim wanted a divorce. Susan would do anything to stop it. That was her motive.
How do you respond to these people that say he told them he was going to divorce you?
Liar.
Oh, okay. All right.
Find me one attorney that steps forward and says that he was filing the paperwork. Where's the paperwork? Who's the attorney? Who had, no, that's a lie.
Okay, all right. So Jim was not going to divorce you?
Never.
Never.
That's the first time I've seen a flash of anger from Susan. She flatly denies the prosecutor's case that fear of Jim leaving her was a motive. They had another allegation, that she was there when her husband died.
Let's go to that fateful night in August of 1992. What happened? Let's talk about that.
Well, it depends on how far back you want to go. But on that day, we had just returned from our family vacation. We had gone to Alaska. And we had another vacation. It was going to be a working vacation with the car dealership.
This is where Susan's story gets very strange.
You walk in, it's a big bed in front of the fireplace.
Given the chance to present a clear, concise version of events, she launches into a rambling story about
In
vacations,
addition to that, we had a third vacation coming up.
real estate ventures,
Because Jim and I were in the process of buying a condominium in Florida Keys.
who drove what car,
And now I've gone from a family car to his little sports car
and a trip to a campground.
because I had bought a camper trailer out of the fairground or the campgrounds for my mother to be right beside my sister.
She slows things down and brings in a flood of superfluous pieces of information. She's trying to confuse me. It's a smokescreen.
So I bought her own.
After 5 minutes of evasion, Susan finally starts to answer the original question. What happened on the night she found her husband murdered in her own home?
So when I walk in, the lights are not on, and Jim always leaves the lights on until I come home, whenever I'm not there. So when I flip on the lights and I'm calling out his name, because I don't understand why the lights aren't on, I don't hear anything. And when I look, he's on the couch and he's unresponsive. And I see a gun by his hand.
And then what did you do?
Well, I run to him to see why he's not responding. And there's no answer. It wasn't until I touch him. I don't know. I just knew I needed to get him help.
And then what did you do?
Something everybody says not to do when you're watching a TV show.
It's around midnight on a Sunday evening in Peru, Indiana. Susan Grund has just found her husband Jim shot to death in their home. What she does next is something that would raise the eyebrows of every detective in America.
It wasn't until I touch him. I don't know. I just knew I needed to get him help.
And then what did you do?
Something everybody says not to do when you're watching a TV show.
What's that?
I pick up the gun.
Why?
Because I didn't know what it was doing there in my house by my husband. I just hid the gun in my sewing basket.
Okay, wait. Before you went to make the emergency hospital call, you put the gun in your sewing
I
basket?
put the gun in my sewing basket.
So hiding it.
I hid it.
You hid it, okay. So you must have made the connection that the gun had something to do with your husband being unresponsive.
I didn't know, and I really didn't want it, at that point, I didn't want it to be a distraction on whatever was going on.
Okay.
So I thought, I don't know. Until I find out what's going on, the only person I knew who had a gun that we were very adverse to was David.
Okay. Did you think it was David's gun?
Yes, I did.
Remember, David is Jim's son, the guy Susan claims to have been sleeping with. None of this adds up. Why would a killer leave the murder weapon sitting by the victim? And if that killer really was David Grund, why would Susan hide the gun?
When did you first talk with David after his father was murdered?
I never did.
Did you want to?
No,
But you suspected him of killing your husband.
absolutely.
Some would think that they would want to confront the person that killed their husband.
I'm a little woman.
Well,
No,
all right. Did you tell the police your concerns?
no.
Why was that?
That's my husband's son.
Susan doesn't voice her suspicions to anyone. Instead, she gets her mom to hide the gun and makes a shocking confession to her sister, Darlene.
Darlene says you had told her, quote, "I killed Jim," close quote. Is that true or not?
That is true that she said that. It is not true that I told her that. Absolutely not.
Okay, she testified at your first trial.
She did.
Why would she do that?
I guess only she knows that.
You don't have a clue? Or it can't, I mean, you've had 18 years to think about why your sister would do that.
I think that the Grunds are pretty powerful in Peru. And to come up against them and what they decide is going to be happening in that town is a mighty feat. So buckling under is probably the safest thing for her to do.
If you had gotten rid of the gun, the weapon, the murder weapon, and never said anything to anyone, you would have gotten away with this. Why didn't you get rid of the gun?
Because I knew I hadn't killed my husband, and I knew that that gun was a link to who did.
But that gun has never been successfully linked to anyone except Susan Grund. In March 1994, she was found guilty of murder and sentenced to 60 years.
Very, very, very harsh.
Very.
60 years, right? Do you recall what you were thinking and what did you feel when you heard that?
It was a good call.
It was a good call.
It was a good call.
And why is that? That's not the answer I was thinking you were going to say to me.
Because my husband's life is worth it.
So your 60-year prison sentence is penance?
No. I think that if the right person had been convicted, I would have wanted them to get 60 years or more.
It's a strange end to a strange tale. I was open to Susan's story, but nothing she's told me makes me question that guilty verdict.
Of all the women I sat down with, Susan was the only one that didn't need additional coaxing. She wanted to. She wanted to take me on. And that is the mark of a narcissist. To the narcissist, their image is everything. Susan's greatest concern is how she looks to other people.
Susan is eligible for parole in 2019. But unless she can come up with more convincing answers to questions like mine, she will always be the woman who murdered Jim Grund. Jennifer Hyatt is waiting for her new husband with a gun. George Hyatt is a dangerous inmate, being taken from a Tennessee courthouse back to prison. Not if Jennifer has her way. Why would a mother of 3 fall in love with a dangerous criminal? And how does a young nurse trade saving lives for taking life? There's only one way to find out. Jennifer Hyatt is about to tell me herself. I'm Candace DeLong. As an FBI agent, I worked on the front line for the world's most powerful law enforcement agency. I went undercover, I trailed terrorists, and I interviewed notorious killers. It's my job to understand the people who others cannot comprehend. In 2004, 31-year-old Jennifer Hyatt begins a nursing job at Tennessee's Northwest Prison. 1 year later, she's in love, marrying a dangerous inmate, George Hyatt. He's a violent armed robber with a history of escapes. 3 months after their wedding, Jennifer tries to help him with his latest escape plan. Prison officer Wayne Cotton Morgan dies in the shootout. Jennifer claims the gun went off by accident. To escape the death penalty, she and George plead guilty to first-degree murder. This is her home now, the Tennessee Prison for Women, and it will be her home until the day she dies. She's serving life with no possibility of parole. Quite a journey for a young mother of 3. Driving in to visit Jennifer, I'm wondering just what made her love a hardened criminal. It's not the first time a young woman has fallen for a bad boy, and there tends to be a reason for it. I think that's the key to understanding why she ended up in here.
Oh, Jennifer, I've read every article I could find about you. I've watched some of your video interviews, and there's something I just can't figure out about you.
What's that?
What is a nice girl like you doing in a place like this? This wasn't supposed to happen.
No.
Tell me about it. Let's go way back. There were some traumatic things in your childhood.
Yeah, after I turned 8.
8, okay. All right, so first big trauma.
Yeah, that's the first thing I remember is my dad and my mom signing the divorce papers in the sheriff's office where my dad worked.
Must have been very hard for you.
It was because I was a daddy's girl. I love my dad to this day. He may not be perfect, but I love him. My dad, to me, has always been the perfect dad. I couldn't see that, okay, mom and dads don't always get along. And my mom didn't tell me until years later that I mean, he cheated on her, and more than once.
But to you, he was your prince.
Even though he let me down many times, yes.
When families break down, children suffer.
I've had enough, and I'm out of here!
When little girls lose their dads, it hurts.
Stop, or I'll have you!
And your daughter, what about her?
And it can affect them for the rest of their lives. As Jennifer hit her teens, she started to see men differently.
Now we're talking around 16, 17 years old. And what was going on that year? What was kind of things were happening?
I started going out with guys. A lot of different guys.
A lot of different guys. What did all these different guys offer you?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Companionship. A friend.
You were looking for something.
I was looking for love in all the wrong places, yeah.
Jennifer's search for love was a painful disaster. 4 marriages and 3 children before she was 30. Why was there so much trouble with men?
All these relationships, you had so many, 4 marriages and relationships in between the marriages. It seems you're attracted to the bad boys. What was that all about?
Because my dad was a bad boy. I've seen my dad do drugs. He cheated on my mom. He abandoned me.
How did you feel about that?
Let down. Scared.
So what does a girl with a taste for bad boys do? She gets a job in a place full of them. Prison. Jennifer Hyatt spent her 20s in a string of disastrous relationships. Men loved her and left her, one after the other. Age 30 and on the rebound after another breakup, she trains to become a nurse and gets a job in a prison.
During my nursing school, we did clinicals in different places. And one of the places was Northwest Prison. I loved it. I loved the excitement. I loved taking care of people.
I can understand that. But it was a prison. Prisons are homes for bad guys.
Yeah.
Surely you knew that.
I don't think it registered.
It didn't.
I felt sorry for them.
So you empathize with the people
Yeah.
that were locked up there.
Yeah. And I'm like, you know, just because you're in prison doesn't mean you're bad.
Well, that may be true in some cases, but it tells me just how naive and vulnerable Jennifer really is at this time in her life. She wants to believe there are still some good guys among the bad guys.
I want you to meet your new bodyguard.
And then she meets a prisoner who spots her weakness right away.
Nice to meet you.
Pleasure's all mine.
George Hyatt. He's assigned to protect Jennifer from sexual harassment as she does her nursing rounds.
I went, oh, okay. I said, you're supposed to take me around so people quit exposing themselves to me. He's like, okay, I can do that. And I was with him almost my whole 8 hours every day.
So that was the beginning.
Yeah.
And how soon after you started being protected did things change from an appropriate relationship to something more?
Probably about 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
It was like really friendly. And then he started dropping notes, you know, I really care about you, you're really pretty. And back then, I was like 200 pounds and not pretty, okay? Not at all. But he made me feel pretty. He's like, you are so beautiful. And I just soaked it up.
You liked it. Hadn't heard those words for a long time.
A very long time.
So, kind of looks like you were a sitting duck there.
Yeah.
When did things take a real serious turn with George?
He talked me into going into a closet with him, and we had sex. I mean, I was scared. Oh, I don't even think I've ever been that scared.
Was it exciting?
Being that scared is kind of exciting. It gets your adrenaline up. You're nervous, you're shaking, and it makes everything kind of a little bit more intense.
What was your interpretation of all this attention from George?
And he loved me.
That he loved you, okay.
Truly and seriously, finally, I found somebody that would love me.
Did he tell you he loved you?
Oh, yeah, all the time.
And how did you feel about him?
I loved him.
It's early 2005. Jennifer Hyatt is a prison nurse, having an affair with a violent inmate, George Hyatt. She's already falling under his control. When Jennifer's caught sneaking food in for her lover, she's fired. Soon, he'll be asking for a lot more.
You married George. Tell me about that. At what point did that happen? You were already, sounds like, having real serious doubts about all his extremely controlling behavior, and yet you married him.
I wanted to prove to him that I was right and he was wrong.
Right about what?
Being faithful, not messing around, not...
Okay.
I wanted to prove to him that I could be a good person.
Calling constantly from his prison cell, George begins controlling Jennifer's life. Before long, she loses her will to resist her new husband. It's exactly what he wants.
Then George says, "Get me out of here. Break me out of prison." Tell me about that.
He said, you know, if I was out, things wouldn't be like this. I could be there to take care of you, and I would be able to trust you, and we wouldn't fight like we do. And I'm like, okay, okay.
Do you remember what you thought or felt when he did ask you to do that? You were numb. Okay.
I was to the point where nothing mattered.
Babe, I got it all worked out.
George is due in court on an outstanding robbery charge. When he turns up, he wants Jennifer waiting with a loaded gun.
He told me that if I walked up behind them and showed
guards.
them the guards, and showed them the gun and told them to put their hands in the air, that they would not argue because they wouldn't put their life on the line like that. They would just put their hands up, and we would take their guns and put them in the van, lock them in, and get in the truck and leave. He goes, but make sure the gun's loaded just in case. I said, just in case of what? That's what I asked. He's like, just in case you have to scare them. I said, and what, shoot the ground? He's like, well, if it takes that, then maybe, yeah. Well, I never even took the safety off the gun.
But you did load it.
Yeah, I did. I did what I was told.
Roane County Courthouse, Tennessee. Prison officers Wayne Cotton Morgan and Larry Porky Harris are doing a routine prisoner transfer. George Hyatt is due back in his cell. His wife, Jennifer, is waiting to break her husband out of custody.
I had the gun in my hand like this. My finger wasn't on the trigger or nothing. It was just kind of sitting there. The safety was on. And I said, hey, guys. And he's like, shoot him, shoot him.
His exact words.
His exact words were, shoot him, shoot him.
Just shoot him!
And that's when Cotton turned around and looked.
Oh, lady, who's got the gun?
And he saw the gun. He saw that the safety was on.
How do you know that he saw the safety was on?
Okay, I don't.
Okay.
But I would assume he did. I can't say for sure he did, though. And he reached around like this and snatched the barrel of the gun.
Lady.
When he did that, I brought my other hand up to try and keep the gun. And when I did, I hit that safety. And he pulled, I pulled, gun went off. I didn't know it hit him at the time.
Your finger must have been on the trigger, though.
Somehow,
We
yeah.
both know this, right?
Yeah.
Do you recall looking at him when you shot him?
No.
Do you recall the loud noise the gun made?
No. I don't remember any of it.
Okay.
I remember feeling the gun jerk. And that was it. He let go, and I turned around and ran.
With the gun?
Yeah.
On the run, Jennifer and George hole up in a cheap motel. Only then does she find out exactly what this bad boy has gotten her into.
TV set goes on and...
Oh, Lord, I'll never forget that.
Tell me
Ever.
about that.
I was laying there, and he turned the TV on to see if they knew anything about where we had gone or anything. And it announced that Cotton had died from a gunshot wound that I had done. And I looked at George and I went, he died. He's like, yeah. I said, does he have family? Does he have kids? I mean, do you know anything about this man? He's like, no, why do I care? And I just broke down and bawled. I said, oh my God, I've taken a man's life from somebody.
What did you want to do at that moment?
Just curl up in a ball and cry. That's all I wanted. I just wanted to lay there. I didn't care if they caught us.
There's a problem with Jennifer's story of that day. Eyewitnesses say she simply pointed the gun and shot it. No struggle.
Okay, I don't.
Her nervous smile when she talks about the shooting tells me a lot. She smiles because she's nervous about being caught deceiving me. I think Jennifer has created her own version of the shooting because that's the only one she can live with. The gun just went off. Facing the evil of what George had made her do is just too much to bear. But the price is real. For the rest of their lives, Jennifer Hyatt's kids will only ever see her on visiting days.
If you had one piece of advice, only one, that you could give to your daughters in relation to the world that they're growing into, what would it be?
Don't listen when somebody tells you they love you.
Don't listen when someone tells you they love
Make
you.
them prove it. Words are nothing. Action's everything.
It's sad and strange advice, and it all comes back to the men in Jennifer's life. She set very low standards for herself, probably because she didn't think she was worthy of having a decent guy. To this day, she says she's still her father's little girl, but she went looking for Daddy in all the wrong men.
Would society be safe if you were released? If Jennifer was out walking about?
Yeah, they
Would
would
people
be.
be safe? And how do you know that?
Because I know I would never hurt another person like that again. But do I deserve to be out? No. I don't deserve to be out there. Do I think I could make it? I know I could. Because I know now that I've got a family that loves me. I know now what I didn't know then. And so, yeah, I know I could be all right out there. And I could do good, and I could make something out of my life. But I don't deserve to, so this is where I am.
I understand that you're going to get to see your kids soon. Is that right?
July 4th. Yeah. It's the only good thing.
That's the only good thing left in your life? That's a lot to live for, though.
It is. It is. Because they're my life. They are how I live now.
Well, I think that was a very emotional interview for Jennifer. Frankly, for me too. A lot of lives were ruined, and it's hard to see someone reliving and talking about this. She was a nurse. She wanted to take care of people, and she ended up taking someone's life and allowing a man to control her. And as a result, she did something very, very much against her own nature. And it's tough to live with. It's a sad story.
Colorado Springs, 1990. A killer waits to strike. When Diane Hood walks to her car, she steps into a trap.
Take it, it's yours!
Holding the gun is 29-year-old mother of two, Jeffrey Reali. Is she an innocent woman manipulated into being a killer? Or was this senseless murder all her own idea? Now, 20 years later, Jennifer is waiting to tell me just what was going through her mind on that terrible night. She's got a story to tell, and I've got some questions for her. I'm Candace DeLong. As an FBI agent, I worked on the front line for the world's most powerful law enforcement agency. I went undercover, I trailed terrorists, and I interviewed notorious killers. It's my job to understand the people who others cannot comprehend. Hours after the murder of Diane Hood, Jeffrey Reali makes an incredible confession. She did it. She shot Diane. But there's a catch. You see, she claims it's not her fault. Diane's husband, Brian, convinced Jennifer that God wanted it that way. The jury agrees. Brian Hood is sentenced to 37 years. And Jennifer ends up here. In the Denver Women's Correctional Facility. She's prisoner number 68136, serving life for first-degree murder. Walking in to meet her for the first time, I can't help wondering, where did it all go wrong for Jeffrey Reali? Did she realize that in loving Brian Hood, she was facing evil?
Here she comes.
Did Brian really command Jennifer to kill? And if he did, why on earth did she say yes? You know, there could be all kinds of answers to that question. but I suspect it has to be somewhere in her relationships with men.
I'm wondering, how did you end up here? How did this become your life? Let's go way back.
You know, that's been the puzzle of my life for the past 20 years, trying to figure out what happened, why I was susceptible, and why I was so eager to please. What were the dynamics of my life that caused me to be susceptible to that?
What kind of guys were you attracted to?
Oh, bad boys.
The bad boys.
Bad boys. The first date I had, I remember the very end of it, ended up in a rape. And I didn't see it as that at the time, but now that I look back, I'm like, whoa, where was your sense of boundaries and sense of self? And I ended up dating this guy for another year.
Yeah.
Now that rings an alarm bell for me. Even as a young adult, Jennifer wants to please men. She'll trade her happiness for theirs. It happens again in college when she meets a young, domineering soldier, Ben Reali.
Ben is the one you chose to marry.
Yeah.
How old were you?
I was 22. I had a great career ahead of me. I had all these great things going on,
And what career did you have?
I was going into architecture. I was following my father's footsteps. And then he was like, well, let's get married. And I'm like, well, I want to finish school. He says, it's now or never. And back then, I felt like I could not exist without someone. I had to have somebody. I would have someone to love. I would have someone to please. I would have someone to chase, and I'd have someone chasing me. And all of that would make me feel more alive.
It's sounding like an ominous pattern. For Jennifer, having a man take care of her is more important than taking care of herself. At age 29, with 2 beautiful young children, Jennifer Reali should be glowing. But life isn't panning out as she'd expected. Her husband, Ben, is a career soldier.
Jim, twice a week.
It's not showing.
And she says he brought military discipline right into the family home.
His way of control or any kind of abuse was usually in the bedroom. And that's where the degradation would usually happen.
Can you tell me about that?
Once we had children, it didn't matter where they were. He would talk about violent sexual acts at dinner and what he was going to do, and I would just not say anything. And it was easier for me to just go along.
Detached and isolated in her own home, she becomes a lonely, vulnerable woman. Then, one fateful day, Jennifer is relaxing in the jacuzzi at her local health club.
And then in walks Brian Hood.
Yes.
Tell me about the day you first met him.
The first time I met Brian was in the jacuzzi, and you know, he uncurled his huge body and shook my hand and said, "Hi, my name is Brian Hood," and I said, "Hi, I'm Jennifer Reali," and he's like, "What do you do for a living?" And I, very chagrined in a sense, said, "Well, I'm a housewife and a mother." And I wasn't real proud of that because I had aspirations to be something else. And he very quickly said, "Oh, that's one of the best professions in the world. I think that's admirable. You should think well of yourself." And da-da-da-da-da. We talked about our marriages, and it was just real small talk. And that was it.
Hi, mind if I join you?
Jennifer is ripe for the picking, and Brian plays her perfectly.
Brian Hood.
But wait for the clincher. He has a tragic story. His wife is suffering from the chronic disease, lupus.
How did he come across when he would speak about his wife's illness?
Very sympathetic. He seemed as though it was such a tragedy at the beginning.
He came across as a caring husband.
Oh, very, very. He was a caring husband, a born-again believer. The package he presented was so pristine that there was no way I would have thought that there was an underlying villain underneath it.
Brian seems like a caring man with strong Christian beliefs. Jennifer trusts him. Next, he invites himself into her house, presumably to sell insurance. With her husband away on military maneuvers, Jennifer is supremely vulnerable.
I was pouring coffee, and he came up behind me, and I turned around, I didn't even know he was there, and he just bent down and kissed me. And I pushed him away, and I said, how can you do this? We're not doing this. And he says, well, you just take your head off, and you put it over there, and you just enjoy it. And he was kind of hard to resist physically. And I was attracted. I was attracted to him.
Well, he was a pretty handsome guy back then.
Yeah, he was a pretty handsome guy, and very, very passionate, very charismatic. And it's as though he knew exactly what to do, exactly when. It's like he could read what I needed.
It was the dream.
It was.
I've seen this kind of behavior before. Jennifer puts up a minor fight, but I believe a part of her wants to be charmed by Brian.
Sorry.
No, you're right.
When she let him into her house, I think she knew an affair might be in the cards.
I'm in the laundry room, and he just picks me up and puts me on the washing machine and washer and dryer, and gets close to me, and basically starts to have sex. And I'm thinking, okay, this is not okay. This is not all right. But this is great. This is great. You know, there was this toss back and forth, and then very abruptly as he'd come in, he left. He got out, and he said, okay, now we're one in the eyes of God. He put his shirt on, walked out, and he was gone. And I'm still sitting there on the washer and dryer.
For Jennifer, sex changes everything. She has fallen for Brian. This is nothing like life with her husband, Ben.
I felt beautiful, I felt affirmed, I felt loved, I didn't feel like I was being used, I didn't feel like trash. Made a huge difference. It was night and day. So that was how the affair began.
Jennifer Reali was a vulnerable woman blinded by passion. When her lover started telling her sob stories about his sick wife, she listened.
First, he started talking about how miserable he was, and that, you know, the disease was potentially deadly, and that he'd wished she'd just die, and that it was getting worse and worse. And he started talking about how he wanted to kill her.
What did you think of this?
I thought he was really distraught. I mean, I felt his pain, and I wanted him just to be able to vent. I figured if he vented, then it was going to be okay. I said, why don't you just divorce her? And he says, well, I can't. Because if I divorce her, then I will perpetually live in sin for the rest of my life. Because you'll be in adultery. Divorce is a no-no in the church. You just can't do that.
But murder's okay?
Murder was okay. And I asked him that, and I thought that was a little odd there. I said, well, he says, because murder's a one-time thing, and you do that once, and then you can confess it, you get forgiven, and there may be consequences throughout life. But really, you're done. It's not going to be a perpetual sin till the day you die.
Thou shalt not commit adultery.
To me, Brian is no Christian. He's a con man. And Jennifer Reali, a lonely woman eager to please, seems an easy mark. Still, it's a long journey from kiss me to kill for me. How does she get there?
Don't you want us to be together? This is what God wants.
How did it come up that you would kill her?
Well, he had come to the conclusion that I was an angel sent by God, and that I was here to help him through this, and that I would be the one to be able to do this. And I thought he was crazy.
What did you think would happen, or did you have any thoughts about what would happen if you simply said, Brian, I'm not going to kill your wife?
I did tell him that. And we had that conversation, and it didn't go well. We were in my car, and I told him, I said, look, I can't do this. I can't do this. You're gonna have to find another way. And I remember him slamming the dashboard.
You got to. Why not?
And he started yelling at me a blue streak, and I don't really recall what he said. But then it was just like, okay.
Do you recall the point, Jennifer, at which you decided to do it, to commit the murder?
Here's the crazy thing. I don't know that I can say that I decided I would. What I decided is that if it was gonna happen, it was gonna happen. Like I said, I thought that God would stop it. If it wasn't supposed to happen, my car would break down, or the meeting would be canceled, or something would happen. And so to say that I made a decision would be a lie.
Brian's plan for Jennifer is to dress in disguise and shoot his wife, Diane, as she leaves a lupus support meeting.
Do you remember how you were feeling? Was your heart pounding?
I went numb, and I felt weightless. I got to a place where it just didn't even feel like I existed. I didn't feel anything.
Just after 8:30 on a Wednesday evening in September 1990.
Take it, it's yours!
That's it. That's the moment Jennifer Reali finally crosses the line. From being a seemingly happy Colorado mother to being a killer.
So take us back. You're no one saw you. You're camouflaged.
I wait for the meeting to come out, and she and somebody else come out. I don't even see the other person. And I tell her to give me her purse, and she does, and she runs.
Take it, it's yours!
And she's halfway between me and the entrance of this support group meeting place. I don't even know where the other girl is. And she turns and she looks at me. And that's when I shoot. And she falls. That shot, I, of course, learned later, went straight through her and killed her. Because it went through her right arm, through her heart, and lodged in her left arm. And it threw her to the ground.
Please!
The only thing I heard, I didn't hear her screaming. I didn't hear the other girl. All I heard was, it has to be 2 shots. She has to be dead. So I walked over to her, and I recall her rolling over onto her stomach, and that's where the second shot is, in her shoulder. And then I ran. And that's it. I've completed my mission. It's an ugly, ugly mission.
Okay.
I didn't believe it had happened. I really didn't. I didn't think it happened at all.
To this day, Brian Hood denies being responsible for Jennifer's actions.
If you could say anything to Brian right now, what would it be?
Take responsibility. If he had taken responsibility for what had happened, things may be different.
Responsibility. Now that's the word at the core of this whole tragic case. Just who is responsible for the death of Diane Hood? I think Jennifer is still coming to grips with that question.
Have you taken responsibility for this?
I've always taken the brunt of the responsibility. Maybe more than I should have, because really, I'm the gun in Brian's hand. I'm not the one that pulled the trigger, you know? He's the one who did. He killed his wife.
If you could say anything to Diane, what would you say?
I'm sorry. That's such a shallow thing to say. That doesn't cut it. She should be bouncing grandbabies on her lap. She shouldn't be where she is. I'd trade places with her if I could. Because she's the one who needs to be living.
The more I talk to Jennifer face to face, the more her problems are becoming clear to me. A lifetime of pleasing others left her dangerously vulnerable to a manipulative man. But in the end, it was Jennifer who pulled the trigger that night.
If you were out of prison, would society be safe from you?
Oh, yes. Yes. I'm no longer a threat because who I was when I came here is not the person I am today. If I had known how to have loving relationships and had believed in myself, Brian Hood couldn't have touched me. Neither could have been Reali. Neither of those men could have touched me. I would have been an architect, somewhere having a successful life, somewhere with probably a great husband and kids that are in college, you know? So I see where I could have gone. But I know that now my desire is to give back to the society that I took from. There are women all over the place that are in similar positions.
Your story, there's a lot for people to learn, young women. What would you like to say to them?
Think. And don't hold any secrets. We're only as sick as our secrets. Tell somebody, talk to somebody, get some reason from somebody else. When we invite other people into our drama, if I'd invited one person in, it wouldn't have happened.
The Jennifer Reali I met was not the same Jennifer that committed murder 20 long years ago. I believe that Jennifer was being truthful with me about what happened. She surrendered her will to Brian Hood, a smooth-talking con man who convinced her to commit a violent act that was not at all in her nature. And 20 years later, she's still paying the price. It's August 2000. In the city of Wollongong, near Sydney, Australia. 20-year-old Belinda Van Crevel and her 2-year-old daughter are leaving the scene of a crime. Inside the house, Belinda's father, Jack, lies dead, brutally beaten and stabbed. Belinda is on her way to report his murder to police. What they don't know is the killer is a friend of hers. And a few days before, she had told him she wanted her father dead.
All I know is he has to die.
This wasn't the first time that murder had been a part of Belinda's life. Her brother is a convicted serial killer. How did she end up surrounded by violent deaths? Did she really want her father killed, and why? Now, Belinda is ready to tell her story in public for the first time ever. I'm Candace DeLong. As an FBI agent, I worked on the front line for the world's most powerful law enforcement agency. I went undercover, I trailed terrorists, and I interviewed notorious killers. It's my job to understand the people who others cannot comprehend. Belinda Van Crevel was born into a life of violence. Her mother abandoned her when she was 2, leaving Belinda and her older brother Mark with their father, Jack. Both children say Jack violently abused them physically and sexually. Abuse that had terrifying repercussions. At 18, Belinda's brother Mark committed 2 horrific murders. A neighborhood shopkeeper violently beaten and beheaded, and a former city mayor and alleged pedophile savagely butchered. The killings shocked Australia. Mark was sentenced to life in prison, his file marked never to be released. Belinda Van Crevel blamed it all on her father, Jack.
He drove him to do what he did. He's the one that should be in jail, not my brother.
2 weeks later, Jack was dead, murdered by Mark's best friend, Keith Schreiber. Police said Belinda asked him to do it. In 2003, she was sentenced to 6 years in prison for soliciting her father's murder. Today, she is free, living in Sydney. Just the thought of the evil Belinda had to face in her life, frankly, stuns me. But I can't help wondering, is she dangerous? Could she still follow in her brother's deadly footsteps? And just what drove 2 children to dream of a perfect world without their father?
So let's go way back. Tell me about what things were like for you as a little girl. What kind of dreams did you have as a little girl?
No dreams.
No dreams at all? About what you wanted your future to be like? The type of
No.
house you wanted to live in? The type of prince you wanted to carry you away? Nothing?
No.
Why do you think that is?
I didn't have those feelings inside me. All I had was fear.
Fear of what?
My father. Whether he was going to kill me, waiting for him to get home. Well, just everything was fear. I lived on eggshells. I got beaten. He beat my brother to the extent of where he was hospitalised.
From being hit?
From being hit, yes. Every morning his pillow was saturated in blood. He had lost so much blood every day. I copped it too, but he copped it a lot worse. It was an everyday thing. I became immune to it eventually. I mean, he did it to me every day. At first I felt the pain.
Like a slap or a
punch? No, not a slap. I mean, punches, kicks. Well, punches until I got hit the ground, and then it was kicks until I lost control of my bowels. And then he would leave the room with a smile on his face and be content with what he'd caused. We tried getting away from our father many a times. Our father would always deliberately find us, and he'd always ask us to come back home, and he'd play nice, and he'd say nothing bad will ever happen again, I'm sorry, and we'd go back there, and the same thing would happen.
At his son Mark's murder trial, Jack Van Crevel admitted that he was extremely violent with his children. But he denied his son's other claim, that he went beyond beatings to sexual abuse.
Let's talk about your father violating your brother. A horrible thing.
Yep.
How old was he when this started, to your knowledge?
7.
And how is it that you are so sure about that? Did you witness something?
My father always went into my brother's room of a night and closed the door and stayed in there for hours and never come out.
We'll never know for sure what went on behind that closed door. But Mark grew up to be a very unusual boy, to say the least. Fascinated by serial killers and violence.
At what point in Mark's youth did you notice that Mark had some psychological issues going on?
When he walked into my bedroom and woke me up and said to me, I think I'm possessed. And I'm scared. I'm sorry.
It's all right. Where would a boy hear the word possession or think of it?
From our father.
From your father?
The way he was. No, it's just so to look at him, you could see that he was scary. He was, but he was like, I don't know, he wasn't right.
Your dad, very scary guy.
Oh, yeah. Very scary.
Growing up, Belinda was torn by two powerful forces: love for the brother who protected her and hate for the father who assaulted them. When Belinda Van Crevel was 18, her brother Mark committed two incredibly violent murders. Mark claimed both his male victims had made sexual advances to him. He said it sparked memories of his father's abuse, and that triggered an extraordinary rage.
What do you recall doing, if anything, at the time that you found out about not only the murders, but that Mark was responsible for them and that they were so brutal? What kinds of things do you recall thinking?
Why did it have to be my brother? He's such a beautiful person. How can your own father do so much damage to their children for Mark to be able to go that far? When I found out about what he did, I understood 100% at what he had done. I understood every reason why, and that was because of what I had seen while we'd grown up.
After two murders, Mark surrendered to police. In court, he blamed his father's abuse for his crimes. But the judge found the murders so violent, he could show no leniency.
Mark, your beloved brother, is convicted and sentenced to spend the rest of his life in prison. Must have been overwhelming. What was it like for you, realizing that?
So unfair.
Unfair.
He didn't need to go to prison, he needed help, he'd been hurt. My father should have been in jail, not my brother. He caused what had happened. So why should my brother go to jail and suffer?
I think Belinda is suffering from a kind of survivor guilt. Mentally, she is much stronger than her brother Mark, and her guilt may stem from the belief that she should have dealt with her father.
When did you start thinking that your father needed to die? Seriously thinking about it.
When my brother got what he got, I had thoughts about that before that, of killing him, but I couldn't do it because I had Tia. If I didn't have Tia, I would have done it.
A childhood of abuse at the hands of her father stoked an incredible fury in Belinda Van Crevel and her brother Mark. After losing Mark to prison, a 20-year-old Belinda was angry. Then she believed her father was abusing her 2-year-old daughter, Tia. She turned to Mark's best friend, Keith Schreiber.
I told him, I can't kill him. He needs to be killed. I can't kill him.
Did you ask Keith to kill your father?
Actually, how it happened was he said to me, when I told him about how Tia had been molested by my father, he turned around and he said to me, right, that's it. He has to go. And I said yes.
Okay.
And he did it.
Late at night, Keith Schreiber crept into the Van Crevel house. Belinda and her daughter Tia were in one room. Jack Van Crevel was asleep in another.
Now, when it did happen, I will never forget it. I've never been so frightened in my life.
Let's talk about that night.
Oh, geez, I thought that my father got the better of him. I thought that whatever it was, I wasn't sure whether Keith had done what he said he was gonna, like the comments he'd made, or whether there was an intruder. I'm in bed with my daughter, and when I heard the noises, I went stiff, my whole body from head to toe. I just, cold, stiff. I thought that my father was killing someone.
Because of the noises that you heard coming out of his bedroom?
Yeah, and then I thought because once he got angry, he's gonna kill that persons, now he's gonna come in, and Tia and I are dead. Without a doubt, we're dead. I was waiting for my father to come in and kill me and Tia and I. He didn't.
The door opened, didn't it?
Yes, it did.
It was almost as if somebody maybe was coming in to see if you were okay, saw that you were there in bed, and backed out.
Yeah.
And what did you do?
I stayed in bed for quite a while. Or I can estimate half an hour or something. Grabbed my daughter, opened the door, I saw blood. And I just went straight out, jumped into my car.
Did you go check on your father?
No.
Okay.
No. In the hallway out the front of my bedroom, I saw blood. I wanted to get the hell out of there. I got out of there. That's what I did.
Jack Van Crevel did not die easily. Hit with an axe, beaten with a fire poker, then carved with a knife. That says one thing to a profiler: hate. This killing was personal. The day after Jack Van Crevel's murder, Keith Schreiber confessed to police, saying he did it to avenge Mark, Belinda, and her daughter Tia. Keith was a victim of abuse himself. The judge said he was in a disturbed mental state and sentenced him to 16 years in prison.
Why do you think Keith killed your father?
Because he probably thought that I was going to do it and lose Tia, and also to impress Mark, to prove I'm a big man too, you know.
What did the police think about your relationship with Keith?
They thought that we were a lot closer than what we were. They, at one stage, found some receipts that I'd sent to Keith and thought that I was paying him off for the murder.
What kind of receipts were they?
They were just money order receipts for $50, $100, $200 here or there. And they said to me straight out, why would you send your father's killer money? I said, well, why wouldn't I? Why not? Why wouldn't I? I don't care that my father's dead. Was he a father? No, he wasn't. I'm brutally honest. I'm not going to sit here and lie and say I'm sending him money for absolutely no reason. I'm sending him money because I want to.
Belinda is careful here not to admit actually paying for her father's death, but she did plead guilty to the lesser charge of soliciting his murder. That earned her a 6-year prison sentence.
Yes, I pleaded guilty to the solicit of my father, and I definitely have no shame in pleading guilty to that. I did ask someone to kill my father. I did the time for that. And I did that because I had a daughter and I did not want to go to jail. If I did not have my daughter, I would have done it myself. I don't care if I would have been locked up for life. The damage he'd caused, I wanted him gone. It was either kill or be killed.
How responsible are you for your father's murder?
I'm glad he's dead. I'm protected, Tia's protected, other little boys are protected. However, Mark's still suffering. That's one thing I can't live with.
Safe to say you do not regret what happened?
Oh, no, not at all.
Safe to say you do not miss your father?
I do not miss my father. If I said that I did, I'd be lying, and I'm brutally honest. I do not miss my father, and I do not regret what happened to him at all. And he deserved it.
Belinda's glee at her father's death is certainly shocking. But if Belinda ever did love her father, she can't even remember it.
How about your life since your father died, including the 6 years you did in prison?
Yeah, 6 years.
It's still better or worse since
Oh, better. Life couldn't be better without my father. Oh.
Even in prison?
Oh.
Even when you were in prison?
Oh, yeah. Without a doubt. Without a doubt.
So the question is, you're out now. Is society safe with you out?
Yes.
And how so?
I'm not a habitual criminal. The problem's gone.
The problem's gone, and you're not the problem.
No, Jack was a problem, and he's gone.
What is the most important thing for your daughter, Tia, who I can see is the most important thing in your life and probably always will be?
Yep.
What is the
Her and Mark.
What is the most important thing for Tia to know about her mom?
That she is safe for the rest of her life and that she'll never be loved as much as I love her to death. I love her more than anything else on this earth, and she knows that.
And she's safe.
Very safe.
Today, Belinda has no contact with her father's killer, Keith Schreiber. She still visits her brother Mark in prison every 2 weeks. I found Belinda to be very believable. Her defense mechanisms are, to say the least, robust. They help her deal with the horror of her childhood and the subsequent aftermath of her father's murder. It was in her nature to fight the monster, to slay the dragon, metaphorically, before it killed her. Belinda became a fighter. And Belinda will be a fighter the rest of her life. Is society safe from Belinda Van Crevel? Right now, I think it is.